All right, so yesterday you guys had taken a little quizzes that went over some of the vocabulary. That vocabulary was in regards to edges, bases, faces, stuff like that. So what we're going to start today is we're going to cover the last section in chapter 10, which is surface area, and we're going to go over all the 3D shapes in terms of surface area. What I would suggest is as we work our way through each of these lessons, you start a formula sheet, because each one of these shapes for this section, I'm going to split it up into 2 days in terms of teaching it. Each shape has 2 formulas to it. So there's going to be 9 formulas in total when we are done, because one of them does only have 1, but there are going to be 9 formulas in total, and it's a decent amount of stuff, so you definitely want to keep it next to you as you're working on the homework. All right, so let's see. We're talking prisms and we're going to talk cylinders today. The reason they are always put together is because in both situations there's 2 bases. So the bases are sort of what it sits on. Now realize that any of these figures can be pushed over. So just because it's lying on a particular surface doesn't mean that that has to be the base itself. So let's go over some vocabulary. So we're going to talk lateral area. So lateral area is the sum of the figure's lateral faces. So it's a little hard to do this virtually. Think of it like that. But if you were to go, say, get a can of soup, or if you got a tissue box or something, and you put one of the bases on your hand, or one of the sides of the tissue box on your hand, the side of the tissue box that is resting on your hand and the one that is on the opposite side of it are considered to be the bases. Everything in between the other 4 sides would be considered to be the faces. So a lateral face is basically any surface that is not a base. Okay, so I'm even going to add that up here. So these are not bases. So a lateral side will always have 4 sides to it when we're talking about prisms, and the base can have, they can basically have more. They can have 5, they can have 10, they can have 100, or less than 3. 100%, it depends on what shape you have, and you'll see a bunch of examples with this. So the formula that we're going to use for finding lateral area, we're going to use LA to designate lateral area, and we're going to write P times H. Now P stands for the perimeter of the base, for perimeter of base, and H stands for the height of the actual prism itself. So height of the prism. Okay, so if we sort of dissect this first one a little bit here. So if you look at this shape, well, again, the 2 surfaces that are on opposite ends of each other, which would be this triangle right here and this triangle right here, those are considered to be the bases. The 2 that they're sitting on. So this is a base and this is a base, which means that all the surfaces in between are considered to be the lateral faces that you're dealing with. Now, when we're calculating lateral area of a triangular prism, formula for lateral area is P times H. P stands for perimeter of the base, H stands for the height. So for perimeter of the base, basically you're adding up all the sides. Well, the issue we have is we only have 2 out of the 3 sides, but it is a right triangle, so I'm going to take that base out of it again, and I'm going to redraw it, so I have 3 and 4. And so if we have to get perimeter, we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, if I want to get perimeter, how do I go about finding the 3rd side? Well, it's a right triangle. I can use Pythagorean Theorem. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared. We get 9 and 16 equals x squared, so x squared is 25, which means x is 5. So that means my missing side over here is equal to 5. So my perimeter is 3 plus 4 plus 5, which gives me 12. Now, the height is the one that attaches or connects the 2 bases. So this is a height, this is a height, and this is a height. So the number that you give for height would then be 13. Again, it needs to connect the 2 bases. It is not just a random line. It actually has to go from one base to the opposite side to the other base. So now lateral area is P times H. So P is 12, H is 13. Which gives us 156, and we are still continuing with area here, so make sure that you have your units squared for every single answer for this. Okay, so part 2 to lateral area is something called surface area. So the difference between lateral and surface area, lateral area was all the area of the faces in between. We didn't account for the bases. What surface area now does, it accounts for every single surface that you see. So we have to now take into account our bases. Now the nice part is, when we're asked to get surface area, we're going to abbreviate SA. It is the lateral area plus 2 times uppercase B. And uppercase B stands for the area of the base, which is why we just finished multiple sections on finding different areas of different figures. So that's why that section, I didn't want you guys to throw any of that stuff out, because now we're going to be using it in this section. So we're going to use the prism above, and we're going to find the actual surface area of the entire shape. So we had said above that the lateral area was already 156, so we already found that. We don't need to re-find it. The surface area is the lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. So the only thing that we have to find new is just the area of our base. So the area of the base, we said that the shape was a triangle. So if the shape is a triangle, more specifically a right triangle, again, I'm going to redraw it over here. So I believe we had, how did I draw it above? Not that it necessarily matters. 4 and 3. All right, so we have 4 and then we have 3. So area of a triangle, we have learned from a previous section, is 1/2 base times height. So what might also be helpful is to pull all those area formulas out as well, just because they are coming back. So we have 1/2, base is 4, the height is 3, and half of 4 is 2, and 2 times 3 gets you 6, which means uppercase B is equal to 6. Now, what you have to make sure and keep in mind, if I extend this lateral area, or the surface area right here, lateral area is 156, so I'm plugging that in. Plus, you have to make sure there are 2 bases, so you have to double that uppercase B value that we just came up with. Don't just leave it as 1. So we have 156, and we're going to add 12 to it, which gives us a final total of 168, and we're continuing with the units squared for that. Okay, so lateral area does not account